of got the basics of the game started. What we're going to do next is give the game playability, a little more dynamic to what happens in the game itself. So as you can see, when we run the game, if the ball goes off the stage, it's over, and your mouse is kind of, you're stuck. So you have to hit Alt F4 to exit the window. We want to set that up to be able to close the window. So we're going to go back into our event editor, and we're going to start another condition. We're going to right click. We want to use the mouse and the keyboard settings. So what we're going to do is right click. We want to use the keyboard, and we're going to do upon pressing a key. And this is going to open up this box, and this is going to let you press a key. We want to use Q to quit the game. So we'll hit Q, and now you can see that it set up your line here. Upon pressing Q, we want to right click here in our storyboard controller, and we want to end application. So let's test this out. Run frame, ball bounces around, and now we hit Q and it closes the window for us. So now, just to make the game, to just add some more playability, you see when the ball left the stage, the game was pretty much over. We want to keep the player active in the game. So let's start another condition. We want to use the ball again, right click, and this time we're going to set its position. So we want to test position, and this is showing like this is your play area here. When the ball leaves the bottom of the play area, and you can see that's how it reads, ball, and this is actually active 4. When it leaves the bottom of the play area, what we want to do is create a new object. So we'll right click here, create object, and we're just going to create another ball and hit OK. And we want the ball to start in the middle, just so it comes in that certain area. We'll hit OK. So let's test out this action and see what happens. So we lost our ball, and it's reappearing. It's coming back into the game. Well, now the game is kind of set up to go forever. We want to add a little more playability back to it as well. So let's hit Q and exit out of that window. And let's go back to our frame editor. So now what we're going to do, we're going to give the game, we're going to give it some lives. So let's right click and insert object, and we want to give it lives. If yours doesn't pull up, if yours is set to all objects, you'll just go to games, and that will pull up these 3, and we want to use lives. Let's hit OK, and it's going to pull up the crosshairs, and let's just put it up in the corner, and it defaults to 3 lives. So now that we have our lives added to our stage, we're going to go back into our event editor. We're going to give it some new conditions to let it know how to react to the new element that we've added. So let's do another new condition, and let's do player 1. So let's right click, and we want to compare to number of lives. So let's click on that, and we want to leave it at 0 and hit OK. So when number of lives equals 0, we want to end application, just like we did when we hit Q. Now when the number of lives equals 0, we want it to leave the application. And how is it going to know that it's reached 0? We need to let the lives know how to count themselves. So since we already have this sentence already set up, ball leaves bottom of the play area, what we can do now is right click, and we want to alright, now that we have it set up to where it reads 0 number of lives is going to end application, now we need it to be able to count the lives itself. So since we already have this sentence set up, ball leaves bottom of the play area, we want this to subtract from the number of lives. So in your player 1 column here, and in the same row, I want to right click number of lives. I want to subtract 1 and hit OK. So now when the ball leaves the play area, it subtracts 1 number of lives every time, and then when the number of lives equals 0, it ends application. So let's test out and see what happens. 1, 2, 3, and the game is over. Now, since we have this initial setup, now we can go ahead and start to add a little more dynamic to the game. Since we have it where it keeps track of lives, let's let it keep track of score. So let's go back to our frame editor, and we're going to do the same thing again. Let's right click, insert object, and now we can set up a score. Let's click and we'll set it up in this side, and you can, it defaults to numbers, which is fine. We have our score dialog box. We have our setup here in the corner. We'll go back to our event editor, and we can set up, since we already have these set up, collision between ball and our active object. We have it bounce and destroy. Now we want to be able to add a score to it. So in our player 1 sequence, score, set score, add score, we want to add the score, and we'll add 1 point, and OK. So now every time the collision between ball and brick, it's going to add a point. So let's test it out and see how it works. So we got 1 point, 2 point, and that's it. Now we lost a life, and sometimes it gets little glitches in the game itself. So you can hit Q. Let's test it out again and make sure that's not a hard glitch. See, it worked that time. Just sometimes your game can hang, so don't worry about that. Sometimes it just needs to be reset. And that's essentially it, guys. That's the meat of your game. You have a live, so you can keep score. It's got functionality, things that keep the player active in the game, and so have fun with it. Create this game. You don't have to use the objects that I've used. Create your own objects, create your own backgrounds, have fun with it.